Hey folks, my name is Jaxsun. Today we're going to be running through some of the changes that are coming to Arms Warrior going into 9.15 and speaking about how this spec can start to get a couple more invites to Mythic Plus groups out there. So Arms overall, if you haven't been exposed to any of this, has had a number of abilities that have been soft capped. Going into Shadowlands, Blizzard implemented hard caps across a huge number of abilities to suppress a bunch of the mass pulls that we were seeing in dungeons. Community feedback 1.5 patches later is that, hey, we need a major change there. So what we're seeing is Bladestorm is now going to deal full damage to 8 targets and then reduce beyond that. Dreadnought deals full damage to 5 targets and then is reduced beyond that. Cleave now deals full damage to 5 targets and reduce beyond that. Additionally, Cleave now applies deep wounds to all enemies hit, which is really encouraging after that bleed, seen some significant buffs with the 9.1 changes. Whirlwind also now deals full damage to 5 targets and is reduced beyond that. So really exciting to see really significant changes in terms of the area of effect. For conduits, Harrowing Punishment, which is a Venthyr conduit, effect was increased by 50%. Impending Victory, the talent, its cooldown was reduced to 25 seconds as opposed to 30, and now heals for 40% of your health, which was 30. That shouldn't be a major differentiator, but it'll be helpful if you do choose to go with that from a talent perspective. Merciless Bone Grinder actually also seen a pretty significant buff, and it actually now gives Whirlwind an extra 180% damage for 9 seconds after Bladestorm ends. So really exciting if you've got that loaded up and are looking to apply it after Ravager is applied. So cool in terms of the changes that we're seeing. If we jump into these specific talents, basically Sudden Death is probably the go-to option here. It's really solid compared to the other two, and gives you a small injection of specific damage. So jump with that in Mythic Plus. Tier 2, it comes down to you. My preference is always to get your warrior the stun it requires. It's absolutely critical, and if you're going to push any kind of Mythic Plus, I know we've got our fear, but having a stun on a 30-second cooldown makes a huge difference. Tier 3, especially for me who happens to play a little bit of Venthyr here, I am really a huge fan of the Massacre. Basically giving us up to 55% downtime or uptime for Condemn lets us just be totally hacking away at bosses. So we're going to continue to be huge in terms of single target damage. Really popular in raiding. You'll still go with Massacre in Mythic Plus, but definitely something to consider here in the future. Alright, so now looking at Tier 4, your recommended option here, Defensive Stance. It's a favorite for both Mythic Plus, raiding, even PvP. It's just that 20% flat damage reduction on demand with no cooldowns. It's an absolute lifesaver. So absolutely worth loading up if that's your preference. Tier 5 in Mythic Plus, we want to stick with Warbreaker. It's just got a really solid choice overall now that it applies Deep Wounds. Creates a great burst window, in particular with Bladestorm. And if you're going with Signet of Ancient Kings as your legendary, Bladestorm is going to hook you up quite a bit in terms of just stacking up your tune in terms of what they bring to the table. Really exciting. Tier 6 Avatar is the way to go. Like we said, it has a synergy with Signet of Tormented Kings. If you're able to take advantage of Avatar like we just did, as well as Bladestorm, you can be applying some really significant burst damage as an Arms Warrior. And while Arms isn't always super popular in Mythic Plus dungeons, we're going to have some pretty massive burst AoE damage here if you line up your talents with your legendaries. Finally, tier 7, the recommendation is actually to go with Dreadnought. It's really strong in multi-target situations like Mythic Plus, especially if you're pairing it up with Cleave. If you choose to go with that, like we kind of mentioned before, Cleave's going to not only strike 5 enemies, but apply a pretty significant bleed on them as well. Warbreaker playing a similar activity though. Warbreaker just does a huge amount of damage, and on a really quick cooldown, so hard to beat in terms of that world. Alternatively, you can look at Ravager. Ravager's actually weaker than Bladestorm, so we usually recommend avoiding that. Anger management is good if you're going to go with like in for the kill on tier 6, but overall, like, that's not what we're going to recommend for a Mythic Plus option. Stick with Dreadnought, go with the build you're seeing here on the screen, or if you're going with something different, drop it down in the comments and let me know. For Legendaries, overall, you're going to see that Signet of Tormented Kings, which is my go-to legendary for both Arms and Fury, makes a huge difference. Like, take advantage of this big Lego. It's at a great spot. The socket helps. Overall, if you can line this up, in particular, if you're looking to min-max, you probably want to go with Night Fae, and that will promote the use of Avatar all the time and get it proccing to deliver more Blade Storms and definitely increase that burst damage for you. Alternatively, you can go with Enduring Blow. It's a pretty strong legendary. It's got pretty good RNG overall. And, you know, if you're incorporating Mortal Strike appropriately, it works well with the Mortal Combo conduit. Alternatively, Elysian Might is a really good legendary if you are specifically playing Kyrian. So, worth picking up on there. You can apply that to your legs or your feet. But ultimately, it basically allows your Spear of Bastion Circle to benefit to increase a bunch of critical strike damage, and that makes a huge difference for us. From a gear perspective, you're actually looking for trinkets that are going to line up with your Avatar 1.5 minute cooldown. So keep that in mind if you're really looking to maximize your burst damage. Overall, Arms actually seen a pretty significant buff in terms of Mythic Plus damage. And it's one of those specs where we knew it would slightly need more time to scale. Certainly with its primary and secondary stats. We've seen how popular it was with raiding in 9.1. Actually, I feel as the season kind of continues on here and we get higher gear on our different Arms Warriors, we'll be in better shape than we are even at the moment. So it's going to be really engaging to see where we go next. But Arms is in a really fun position. Alright folks, that's pretty much it from me. I'm excited overall to touch on this content with you. Let me know what you thought of the guide. What did I miss? What would you like to hear more of? And thanks for watching the vid. Hit subscribe, let me know in the comments what I can do better, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya.